My friends, something happens in the supernatural realm when a believer awakens at 3 a.m. and begins to pray. It is a time when the forces of darkness are at work, yet it is also a moment when God is waiting for his people to arise and call upon his name. All throughout Scripture, we see the significance of the midnight and early morning watches. It was during the night that Paul and Silas prayed and worshiped in prison, shaking the very foundations of their captivity. It was in the secret hours of the night that Jesus himself went up the mountain to seek the Father's will. The 3 a.m. hour is not just a random moment in time. It holds deep spiritual significance in the supernatural realm. It is the hour when the natural world is at its quietest, but the spiritual realm is most active. Throughout history, men and women of God have encountered divine visitations, angelic encounters, and supernatural breakthroughs in the stillness of the night. There is something about this hour that draws heaven closer and causes darkness to tremble. In the Bible, we are told that there are specific times when the heavens are open and God inclines his ear to his people. The early morning watches have always been a time of deep spiritual transactions. When Jesus walked the earth, he often withdrew to solitary places to pray while it was still dark, setting an example for us to follow. If the Son of God found it necessary to seek the Father in the night hours, how much more should we? The enemy knows the power of this hour, which is why darkness is most active during this time. It is no coincidence that many people experience nightmares, demonic oppression, and spiritual attacks in the early morning hours. This is the time when the enemy releases assignments of fear, discouragement, and destruction. But it is also the time when God's power is most available to those who will rise up and pray. We are called to be watchmen, standing in the gap, pushing back the forces of darkness through the power of prayer. In the Bible, we are told that God moves in the night hours. When Paul and Silas were locked in prison, it was during the night that they began to pray and worship, and suddenly the prison shook. Chains broke and doors flung open. This was not an accident. It was a divine response to sincere prayer in the dark hours. Likewise, when Peter was in prison, the church gathered to intercede for him, and an angel was dispatched to set him free. These moments are not just historical events, but spiritual patterns that reveal a truth. The night watch is a moment of divine intervention. Many who engage in 3 a.m. prayer have testified to supernatural encounters, visions, and deep revelations that they would not have received at any other time. This is because at this sacred hour, the distractions of the day are silenced and the voice of God becomes clearer. Those who sacrifice their sleep to meet with God at this time find that their spiritual sensitivity increases, their authority in prayer strengthens, and breakthroughs come more swiftly. There's an invitation from heaven to step into a new realm of power. The Father is looking for those who will seek him when the world is asleep, who will stand in the gap, and who will push back the darkness. This is not just about personal breakthroughs. It is about shifting atmospheres, changing destinies, and aligning with God's perfect will. The hour is significant, the call is urgent, and the power is available to those who will rise and seek him. Darkness operates where there is ignorance, fear, and spiritual slumber. But the moment a believer rises in prayer, the chains of oppression begin to break. There are battles that cannot be won in the natural. They must be confronted in the spiritual realm. Many people wonder why they struggle with repeated cycles of bondage, delays, and opposition in their lives. But what they don't realize is that these battles are being fought in the unseen world long before they manifest in the physical. When a believer engages in 3 a.m. prayer with sincerity, something powerful happens. The chains that have held them back for years begin to shatter. In the Bible, we are said that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against rulers of darkness, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This means that the problems we face are not merely physical. They are deeply spiritual, whether it's addiction, fear, sickness, or generational patterns of failure. These things often have spiritual roots that can only be addressed through spiritual warfare. The enemy is strategic in his attacks, and he works in darkness because he knows that ignorance is his greatest weapon. But when a child of God wakes up at 3 a.m. and begins to pray, they are stepping into a place of revelation and authority where the plans of the enemy are exposed and destroyed. In the Bible, we are said that at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and worshiped, and suddenly a great earthquake shook the foundations of the prison, opening all the doors and loosing every chain. This was not just a natural event. It was the power of God responding to sincere prayer in the dark hours. Many believers are spiritually imprisoned, held captive by fear, depression, and setbacks. But when they rise in prayer, the prison doors of their lives begin to open. The chains that bound their families for generations begin to break. The demonic oppression that has tormented their minds begins to lift. There are forces that thrive in secrecy, and their power lies in remaining undetected. The moment a believer engages in serious prayer, they shine a light into the hidden places where the enemy has been operating unnoticed. It is in the secret hours of prayer that God reveals the hidden plots of the enemy, just as he did for Elisha when he exposed the plans of the enemy king. When the enemy tried to surround Elisha, God opened his eyes to see the angelic armies that were fighting on his behalf. In the same way, those who rise in the night watch receive divine insight, supernatural wisdom, and strategies for victory. Many people try to fight their battles through natural means, using logic and effort. But some breakthroughs can only come through prayer and fasting. When a believer rises in the night and cries out to God, they are declaring war on the forces that have held them back. The enemy will do everything in his power to discourage, distract, and keep people from engaging in deep prayer, because he knows that once a person taps into this supernatural power, his grip over their life is broken. There is nothing that darkness fears more than a believer who knows their authority and is willing to fight back in prayer. There are moments in time when heaven seems closer, when the presence of God feels tangible, and when the supernatural invades the natural. The 3 a.m. hour is one of those moments. It is not just a random time of the night. It is a divine access point, a portal, where the spiritual realm is more active and the power of God is available in extraordinary ways. Throughout history, men and women who walked in deep communion with God understood the significance of the night watch. They knew that there were mysteries hidden in the stillness of the early morning, waiting to be revealed to those who would seek him. In the Bible, we are said that God does nothing without first revealing his plans to his servants, the prophets. This means that there are things God desires to show his people, but not everyone is positioned to receive them. The distractions of the day often drown out the voice of God, but in the silence of the night, those who pray with sincerity gain access to divine revelations. Many of the greatest encounters recorded in Scripture happen in the quiet hours. When Jacob wrestled with God and his destiny was changed forever, it was in the night. When Samuel first heard the voice of the Lord calling him, it was in the night. When Solomon received wisdom beyond human understanding, it was in the night. There is something about this sacred hour that opens the heavens and releases divine insight. In the Bible, we are said that Daniel sought God with fasting and prayer, and as he prayed, an angel was sent with the answer. But this was no ordinary moment. His prayer caused a shift in the spiritual realm, and a battle took place in the heavens. The angel carrying his answer was resisted by the forces of darkness. But because Daniel persisted in prayer, the breakthrough came. This reveals a powerful truth. What happens in the unseen world determines what happens in the physical, and persistent prayer is the key to unlocking divine answers. The 3 a.m. hour is a time of intercession where believers stand between heaven and earth, partnering with God to bring his will into manifestation. There are testimonies of people who, after engaging in deep prayer at this hour, receive supernatural strategies for their businesses, ministries, and families. Others have experienced prophetic dreams, visions, and encounters that directed them into their divine assignments. This is not by accident. In the Bible, we are said that God will pour out his Spirit upon all flesh, that sons and daughters will prophesy, old men will dream dreams, and young men will see visions. These encounters are not reserved for a select few. They are available to anyone who is willing to step into the place of divine alignment. The question is not whether God is speaking, but whether his people are positioned to listen. Those who seek him at this hour are granted access to his heart, his plans, and his power. When a believer rises in the early morning to pray, they are stepping into an open heaven where the supernatural becomes natural and impossible situations begin to shift. There is a depth of relationship with God that can only be found in the secret place, in the moments of stillness, when the world is asleep and the heart is fully surrendered. The 3 a.m. hour is not just a time for warfare and breakthroughs. It is a sacred moment of intimacy with God, a time when the distractions of life fade away and the soul connects with the presence of the Almighty. Those who wake up in the night watch to seek him are not just engaging in a religious act, but stepping into a divine encounter that transforms them from the inside out. In the Bible, we are said that those who seek God with all their hearts will find him. This is not about routine prayers or empty words. It is about a longing for the presence of God, a hunger that cannot be satisfied by anything else. Many people live their lives searching for purpose, peace, and fulfillment, yet these things can only be found in the one who created them. There is a level of intimacy that cannot be reached in the busyness of the day, where the voice of God is drowned out by responsibilities, noise, and distractions. But in the stillness of the early morning, when everything is quiet, the heart is more sensitive, the mind is clear, and the Spirit of God begins to move in a way that is undeniable. In the Bible, we are said that Jesus would often withdraw to a solitary place to pray while it was still dark. If Jesus, the Son of God, needed time alone with the Father, how much more do we? This was not just a habit, it was the key to his power, wisdom, and ability to walk in perfect alignment with God's will. It was in these moments that he received strength, direction, and the anointing to fulfill his purpose on earth. Those who desire to walk in the fullness of their calling must learn the power of seeking God in the secret place, where divine mysteries are revealed and spiritual authority is cultivated. In the Bible, we are said that Moses spoke to God face to face as a man speaks with his friend. This level of relationship was not built in public. It was forged in the quiet moments of deep communion. It was in the presence of God that Moses' face shone with glory to the point that the people could not even look at him. When a person dwells in the presence of God, they are transformed. Fear is replaced with faith. Weakness is exchanged for strength, and confusion turns into clarity. The more time spent in his presence, the more his nature is reflected in their lives. Many wonder why they feel distant from God or why they struggle to hear his voice. The truth is, intimacy requires pursuit. Just as a deep relationship between two people is built through intentional time together, a deep relationship with God is cultivated in the moments when everything else is laid aside. Those who wake up in the night, watch to seek him, are drawn into a realm where his presence becomes tangible, where his whispers become clear, and where his love is experienced in ways that words cannot describe. There is a reason why the enemy fights hardest against those who desire to pray, especially in the night hours. The spirit of slumber is not just physical tiredness. It is a strategic attack designed to keep believers from stepping into their place of authority. Many people set their hearts to wake up at 3 a.m. only to find themselves overcome by exhaustion, distractions, or an unusual heaviness that keeps them from pressing into prayer. This is not a coincidence. The enemy knows that when a believer engages in sincere prayer during this sacred hour, the kingdom of darkness suffers a great loss. In the Bible, we are said that the disciples of Jesus struggled to stay awake when he asked them to pray with him in the garden. Their spirits were willing, but their flesh was weak. This moment was not just about physical sleep. It was a battle in the spiritual realm. The forces of darkness were pressing in, and yet those who were supposed to stand in prayer had been overcome. This same strategy is used today against believers. The enemy knows that if he can keep people asleep, distracted, or indifferent to prayer, he can delay breakthroughs, block revelations, and weaken their spiritual authority. In the Bible, we are said that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus came to give life and abundance. One of the greatest things the enemy steals is time. Time that should be spent in prayer, time that should be used to hear from God, and time that could be devoted to seeking the will of the Father. When believers are lulled into spiritual sleep, they lose ground without even realizing it. They wonder why they feel disconnected, why they struggle with persistent battles, and why they cannot discern the voice of God. The truth is, victory often depends on consistency in prayer, and the night watch is one of the most powerful moments to take back what the enemy has stolen. In the Bible, we are said that those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. This is not just about waiting passively, but actively seeking him even when the body resists. The strength to overcome the spirit of slumber is not found in human effort alone. It is found in the presence of God. Those who press past the weariness, who fight against the distractions, and who refuse to let the enemy steal their time in prayer will find themselves empowered with supernatural strength. The flesh may grow tired, but the spirit is awakened to new levels of authority and revelation. In the Bible, we are said that the wise virgins kept their lamps burning while the foolish ones let theirs run dry. This parable reveals a deep spiritual truth. Those who stay spiritually awake will be ready for the move of God, while those who are unprepared will miss divine opportunities. The 3 a.m. hour is a test of spiritual hunger, a moment where those who desire to walk in the fullness of God's power must push past their flesh and step into the supernatural. Those who overcome the resistance and engage in deep prayer will find themselves walking in greater anointing, clarity. There is a divine urgency in the Spirit for believers to rise up and take their place in prayer, especially in the night hours when darkness is most active. The forces of evil do not rest, and the enemy operates in secrecy, seeking to plant seeds of destruction while people are unaware. The greatest breakthroughs, deliverances, and supernatural shifts happen when someone is willing to stand in the gap and intercede. The 3 a.m. hour is not just a time of personal devotion. It is a time of warfare, a moment to push back the darkness and establish the will of God over families, cities, and nations. Those who understand the power of this hour know that their prayers are not just words, they are weapons in the hands of God. In the Bible, we are said that when men slept, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. This is a strategy of darkness, working in the unseen, planting destruction while people are spiritually asleep. Many of the struggles, delays, and battles people face are not just natural occurrences, but the result of things that were sown in the spirit long before they manifested in the physical. But those who wake up to pray at this hour are like watchmen on the walls, standing guard against the plans of the enemy. They refuse to allow darkness to take root, and through their prayers, they intercept the attacks that were meant to bring harm. In the Bible, we are said that God looked for someone to stand in the gap, but he found no one. This reveals a deep spiritual truth. There are battles that remain unchallenged because no one rises to pray. The enemy advances when there is no resistance, but when a believer takes their place in intercession, things begin to shift. The chains that held families in bondage for generations begin to break. The strongholds over cities and nations begin to weaken. What seemed impossible in the natural begins to change because someone dared to pray. In the Bible, we are said that Elijah was a man just like us, yet when he prayed, the heavens responded. This means that prayer is not limited to a special few. It is available to anyone willing to stand in faith. The same God who answered Elijah is still answering today. When a believer rises at 3 a.m. and begins to cry out, the heavens take notice. Angels are dispatched. Doors that were locked swing open. The impossible becomes possible. In the Bible, we are said that the prayers of the righteous are powerful and effective. The enemy will always try to convince people that their prayers do not matter, that they are too weak, too small, or too insignificant to make a difference. But the truth is, every prayer spoken in faith releases power into the atmosphere. When believers wake up at this hour to intercede, they are not just praying for themselves. They are shifting generations, rewriting destinies, and ushering in the glory of God. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a divine moment when heaven opens up, a time when the supernatural collides with the natural and breakthroughs are released like never before. That moment is at 3 a.m. Right now, I want to take you into a powerful supernatural experience that will shift your destiny forever. The power of midnight and 3 a.m. prayers is a deep spiritual mystery that many overlook. Yet in the realm of the Spirit, this is a time of intense activity, both for the kingdom of darkness and for those who call upon the name of the Lord. It is in these hours that destinies are either hijacked or secured, where battles are either lost or won. Many people struggle with cycles of failure, oppression, and delay because they are unaware that breakthroughs don't just happen in the natural, they are first birth in the spiritual. There's a reason why so many attacks come in the night: sleeplessness, nightmares, sudden fear, or even a strange heaviness that keeps you from praying. The enemy knows that if you can rise and pray at this hour, you will shift things in your favor. In the Bible, we are said that Paul and Silas were in prison, bound in chains with no way of escape. It was the darkest moment of their lives, yet at midnight they began to pray and sing praises to God. Suddenly, the prison doors flew open and every chain was loosed. This was not an ordinary moment. It was a supernatural response to a prayer made at a strategic time. The enemy works under the cover of darkness. In the stillness of the night, when most people are asleep, there are demonic transactions taking place, destinies being exchanged, and spiritual battles being fought. If you are not aware of this, you might wake up feeling exhausted, confused, and attacked, not knowing that in those hours something was being stolen from you in the spirit. That is why Jesus himself would wake up while it was still dark and go to a solitary place to pray. He understood that some things require warfare in the spirit before they manifest in the natural. Many people pray but wonder why they don't see results. The timing of your prayer matters. There are certain doors that only open when you engage in prayer at the right time. If Paul and Silas had waited until morning, their deliverance might not have come. There is a reason God wakes you up in the middle of the night with a burden to pray. Sometimes that restlessness you feel at 3 a.m. is not just random. It is an invitation to step into a moment of divine alignment. In the Bible, we are said that when the Israelites were about to leave Egypt, their breakthrough came at night. While Egypt was asleep, God was moving. While darkness covered the land, the angel of the Lord was at work. Some breakthroughs require you to engage in prayer when the natural world is silent, but the heavens are open. The enemy fights the hardest at night because he knows that once the morning comes, joy follows. That is why you must rise before dawn and take control of your atmosphere before the enemy has a chance to establish anything against you. When you pray at 3 a.m., you are not just making requests. You are making declarations. You are shifting the spiritual atmosphere, commanding things to align with God's will. You are silencing the voice of the enemy that has been speaking against your destiny. You are activating angels on assignment, enforcing the will of God over your life. Many people don't realize that heaven responds when you pray with authority in the night. There are prayers that cause an immediate shift because they are prayed at the right time. The power of 3 a.m. prayer is not just in the act itself, but in the faith and expectation behind it. If you approach it like a ritual, you may not see results. But when you rise with faith, knowing that heaven is waiting for your words, you will see the impossible become possible. You will wake up to testimonies, to doors that suddenly open, to favor that was locked away for years. You will realize that some things you struggled with for months could have been broken in one night of prayer. For those who have been battling long seasons of delay, stagnation, or oppression, this is your moment. When you rise at 3 a.m. and declare your breakthrough, the heavens respond. God is calling his people to a deeper level of prayer, to partner with him in bringing his will to pass on earth. The question is, will you answer the call? There is a divine mystery in seeking God in the early hours of the morning. Throughout the Bible, we see a pattern. Those who encountered deep spiritual breakthroughs, divine visitations, and supernatural interventions often sought God while it was still dark. There is something powerful about rising before the world wakes up, before the distractions of the day take over, and positioning yourself in prayer. This is not just about discipline. It is about understanding spiritual timing. The heavens are open in a unique way when you step into this moment of communion with God, aligning yourself with his divine will. In the Bible, we are said that Jesus, even in the midst of his demanding ministry, would rise early while it was still dark and go to a solitary place to pray. He knew that before he faced the crowds, the sick, the Pharisees, and the demands of the day, he needed to be in the presence of the Father. He was showing us a divine principle. Seeking God before the world wakes up positions you for power, clarity, and breakthrough. Many people struggle through life, facing confusion, opposition, and unexpected battles, not realizing that their victory is secured in the secret place of early morning prayer. When you wake up at 3 a.m. or before dawn and begin to pray, you are stepping into a sacred moment. It is a time of divine alignment where heaven is waiting for those who will seek God earnestly. In the Bible, we are said that those who seek the Lord early will find him. This is not just a poetic statement. It is a key to unlocking God's presence in a deeper way. There is a reason that prophets, kings, and mighty men of faith all had this habit. They understood that some revelations, some breakthroughs, and some answers only come in the quiet hours when the rest of the world is asleep. When the Israelites were in the wilderness, manna would fall from heaven, but they had to gather it early in the morning. If they waited too long, it would melt away. This is a prophetic picture of how God releases fresh revelation, wisdom, and breakthrough to those who rise early to seek him. Many people miss what God is saying because they are too busy or distracted during the day. But in the early morning, before the noise begins, before the demands of life take over, there is a window where God speaks clearly. Those who wake up and position themselves in prayer are the ones who receive divine strategies, answers to their deepest questions, and direction for their next season. There is also a supernatural authority that comes with early morning prayer. In the Bible, we are said that Job would rise early to offer sacrifices on behalf of his family. He understood that before the day began, he had to establish spiritual covering and protection over his household. When you wake up and pray, you are setting the course of your day. You are covering your family, your business, your destiny with God's presence. The enemy dreads believers who understand this principle because he knows that a day covered in early morning prayer is a day that is fortified against his attacks. Spiritual battles are often won or lost in the early hours of the morning. This is when principalities and powers operate, setting up their plans against individuals, families, and even nations. But when you rise in prayer, you disrupt their agenda. You declare that this day belongs to the Lord. You speak life over your circumstances. You cancel every evil assignment before it has a chance to manifest. Many people experience unexpected challenges, accidents, or sudden disappointments, not knowing that these things were set in motion in the spirit realm while they slept. But when you wake up and pray, you dismantle every scheme of the enemy before it takes root. There is something about morning prayer that attracts angelic activity. In the Bible, we are said that when Abraham woke up early, he had encounters with God that shaped his destiny. When Jacob woke up from his sleep, he realized he had been in the presence of angels standing at the very gate of heaven. There are moments in the early hours where the heavens are open, where angelic assignments are released, and where divine encounters take place. Those who press into prayer at this time often experience an unusual presence of God, prophetic insight, and supernatural visitations. For those who feel stuck, lost, or in need of a breakthrough, the answer is often in the timing of your prayer. Some doors only open when you engage in early morning intercession. Some battles are only won when you rise before dawn and command your day. Some spiritual blessings are only unlocked when you meet God in the secret place before the world wakes up. The question is, will you respond to this divine call to seek Him early? Words are not just sounds. They are powerful forces in the realm of the Spirit. Every word spoken carries weight, whether for good or for destruction. Many people pray, but they do not see results because they do not understand the power of their own words. When you pray at 3 a.m., you are not just speaking into the air, you are issuing decrees, making declarations, and shifting spiritual realities. The words that come from your mouth have the ability to create, uproot, establish, and break chains. In the Bible, we are said that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. This means that what you declare in the Spirit will manifest in your life. There are prayers that are answered immediately because they align with divine timing, authority, and faith. When you speak in alignment with God's will at the right hour, things begin to move in the unseen realm. The reason why 3 a.m. is so critical is that this is when spiritual forces are most active, both the forces of darkness and the forces of light. It is a time when demonic altars are speaking against destinies, when curses are being reinforced, and when the enemy is busy manipulating the lives of those who are unaware. But it is also a time when angels are moving, when the heavens are listening, and when spiritual gates are open. Those who understand this know that speaking the right words at this time can overturn the plans of the enemy and release divine breakthroughs. Many people cry out to God, but do not realize that He has already given them the authority to speak to their situation. In the Bible, we are said that when Jesus spoke to the storm, it obeyed Him. He did not beg, He commanded. He did not plead, He decreed. When He encountered sickness, He did not ask it to leave, He spoke, and it was done. He understood that words are not just sounds, but carriers of power. If you have been struggling with delay, opposition, or stagnation, it may be because your words have not yet aligned with the authority God has given you. At 3 a.m., when you rise to pray, you must understand that you are stepping into a courtroom. The accuser of the brethren is presenting cases against the children of God, seeking to delay, hinder, and block their breakthroughs. But those who know their rights in Christ do not remain silent. They speak with authority, overturning accusations and declaring the promises of God over their lives. In the Bible, we are said that whatever we bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever we loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. This means that when you declare freedom, heaven enforces it. When you command a blessing, the spirit realm aligns to bring it to pass. Some battles cannot be won through silent prayers. There are moments when you must open your mouth and speak with boldness, commanding things to shift. In the Bible, we are said that Ezekiel was brought into a valley of dry bones, and God asked him if they could live. Instead of acting in fear or doubt, Ezekiel did what God commanded. He prophesied, he spoke to the bones, and suddenly there was movement, alignment, and restoration. If he had remained silent, nothing would have changed. But the moment he released words in faith, the power of God was activated. This is the key to 3 a.m. prayers. Not just praying, but speaking life, declaring restoration, and commanding breakthroughs. When you pray, do not just ask, decree. When you worship, do not just sing, prophesy. When you wake up at 3 a.m., do not just whisper, speak with boldness. There are spiritual forces that only respond when they hear the sound of authority. There are chains that only break when you command them to. Some delays in life remain because no one has spoken against them. Some blessings are still locked up because no one has decreed them into manifestation. The Bible tells us that we shall decree a thing and it shall be established. This means that your words have the power to shape your future. Heaven is waiting for your voice. Angels are on assignment, listening for words spoken in faith so they can move on your behalf. The reason many do not see results is that they cancel their own prayers with negative words. They ask God for a breakthrough, but then speak doubt over their own lives. They declare victory in prayer, but confess defeat in conversation. The spirit realm responds not just to the words spoken in prayer, but to the words spoken throughout the day. This is why you must train your tongue to only speak life, to only declare what aligns with God's promises, and to only release words that create rather than destroy. If you desire a shift, if you are waiting for a breakthrough, if you have been crying out for change, then it is time to rise at 3 a.m. and speak. Do not be silent. Speak to your finances. Speak to your health. Speak to your destiny. Speak to every mountain standing in your way and command it to move, The heavens are listening. The angels are waiting. The spirit realm is responding. Will you release the words that will unlock your breakthrough? There is a realm in the spirit where battles are fought and victories are won long before they manifest in the physical. Many people do not realize that their breakthroughs, their answered prayers, and even their protection are often the result of divine activities happening in the unseen world. When you pray at 3 a.m., you are not just releasing words into the air, you are activating angelic forces assigned to your life. Angels are ministering spirits sent by God to enforce His will, to fight on behalf of His people, and to bring divine answers. There are times when what you have been praying for is already on the way, but resistance in the spirit delays it. When Daniel prayed, his answer was dispatched immediately, but a demonic prince stood in opposition. If he had stopped praying, if he had given up, he would never have seen the answer that had already been released. At 3 a.m., there is a unique activation of spiritual forces. It is a time when demonic assignments are at work, but it is also the moment when heaven is moving on behalf of those who call upon God. In the Bible, we are said that Jacob had an encounter with an angel at night. He wrestled in the spirit, refusing to let go until he received his blessing. This is a prophetic picture of what happens in the early hours of the morning. It is a time of contending, of pressing in, of refusing to let go until the blessing is released. There are certain blessings, certain breakthroughs that require persistence in the spirit. Those who give up too soon never see the full manifestation of what God has prepared for them. There are times when prayers seem unanswered, not because God has not responded, but because there is spiritual resistance. Angels are fighting, but persistence in prayer strengthens them to break through. In the Bible, we are said that when Peter was in prison, the church prayed fervently, and an angel was sent to deliver him. The chains fell off, the doors opened, and he walked out of captivity. If they had not prayed, the outcome would have been different. There are angels assigned to your breakthrough, but they are waiting for you to engage in prayer. Angels are not activated by fear, worry, or complaining. They respond to the voice of faith. In the Bible, we are said that when Elijah prayed, angels moved on his behalf. When he called on fire from heaven, heaven responded. When he was under attack, an army of angels surrounded him, invisible to the natural eye, but fully engaged in the battle. Many people go through life unaware that they are surrounded by divine help, that they have angelic warriors fighting for them, but their inactivity in prayer leaves their help unutilized. There are moments when answers come not because of a simple request, but because someone stood in the place of prayer and refused to be moved. In the Bible, we are said that Jesus, in his most intense moment of prayer, was strengthened by an angel. This means that there are times when even your ability to continue praying comes from divine reinforcement. If Jesus needed angelic help in the place of prayer, how much more do we? Many give up too soon, walking away just before the answer arrives. But those who engage the spirit realm through consistent prayer see the supernatural move in their lives. Angels are assigned to watch over God's people, to deliver them from harm, to fight against the plans of the enemy. In the Bible, we are said that when a great army surrounded Elisha, his servant was afraid, seeing only the natural danger. But when his eyes were opened, he saw that the hills were full of angelic warriors, greater in number and power than those who were against them. The reality of the spirit world is that what we see with our physical eyes is only a fraction of what is truly happening. The enemy operates in darkness, hoping that believers will remain ignorant of their authority. But when you rise at 3 a.m. and begin to pray, you engage the supernatural army of heaven. There are doors that remain locked, not because God has not given you the key, but because the enemy has stationed resistance to keep you out. But when you pray, when you declare the word of God, when you persist in faith, angels are released to dismantle every obstacle in your way. There are testimonies waiting to be birthed, miracles waiting to manifest, but they require a partnership between the believer and the forces of heaven. In the Bible, we are said that an angel was sent to roll away the stone from the tomb where Jesus was laid. What seemed like an impossible barrier, what looked like the end, was nothing in the hands of divine intervention. Some things in life will not move until divine help is activated. Some delays will not end until you engage the forces of heaven through prayer. When you rise at 3 a.m. and begin to pray, you step into a divine moment where the armies of heaven are mobilized on your behalf. The breakthroughs you have been waiting for are closer than you think. The question is, will you activate what heaven has already prepared for you? There are moments in life when the battles we face are not just physical, but deeply spiritual. Many struggles, delays, and obstacles people encounter are rooted in the unseen realm. There are spiritual forces working tirelessly to hinder progress, suppress destinies, and keep people bound. The enemy operates in secrecy, using deception and strongholds to keep individuals from walking in their God-given purpose. However, those who understand the power of 3 a.m. prayer know that this is the hour of spiritual warfare, the hour when demonic agendas can be overthrown and the plans of the enemy can be dismantled. In the Bible, we are said that while men slept, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. This means that while many are at rest, the enemy is actively working, planting seeds of confusion, delay, sickness, and failure. If these seeds are not uprooted through prayer, they grow into obstacles that hinder destiny. But those who rise at 3 a.m. are stepping into a time of warfare where they can cancel every demonic seed before it takes root. The enemy is strategic, attacking when people are unaware. But prayer is a weapon that exposes and destroys his schemes before they manifest. There are battles that cannot be won in the natural. Some struggles persist for years because the root cause is spiritual. Many people experience cycles of failure, disappointment, or hardship, not knowing that these patterns are enforced by spiritual altars. In the Bible, we are said that Gideon was instructed to tear down his father's altar before he could step into his calling. The altar was a legal ground that allowed oppression to continue in his family. Until it was destroyed, the enemy had the right to operate. Many people pray for breakthrough, but they do not realize that as long as there is a spiritual stronghold, their prayers are hindered. At 3 a.m., when the spirit realm is active, those who engage in warfare prayers have the power to tear down every demonic altar working against their lives. Demonic resistance is real. And those who are called to great things often face intense spiritual opposition. In the Bible, we are said that Paul spoke of being hindered by Satan. The enemy does not waste his attacks on those who are not a threat. If you are facing unusual resistance, it is often a sign that there is a great calling upon your life. The enemy fights what he fears. This is why spiritual warfare is necessary. If you do not fight, the enemy will not stop. If you remain passive, he will continue to operate freely. But when you rise in prayer, when you take your authority in Christ, when you engage in spiritual warfare, you become a threat to the kingdom of darkness. There are strongholds that have kept people bound for generations. Patterns of poverty, sickness, marital failure, addiction, these things do not just happen. Many times they are the result of generational bondage, demonic covenants made in the past that still speak today. In the Bible, we are said that the sins of the fathers can affect generations. This is why some families struggle with the same issues year after year. But at 3 a.m., when you rise in prayer, you have the power to break every chain. You have the authority to renounce and cancel every agreement made in the past that does not align with God's will for your life. You have the ability to speak freedom over your bloodline and release the blessings that have been locked up. The enemy fears believers who understand spiritual warfare. He does not fear church attendance. He does not fear religious activity, but he fears those who know how to pray, those who know how to fight in the Spirit, those who understand that their victory is won in the secret place. In the Bible, we are said that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. This means that prayer is not just a religious exercise. It is a weapon. It is how battles are won, how victories are secured, and how destinies are reclaimed. Many people remain in bondage because they do not engage in spiritual warfare. They accept whatever happens in their lives as normal, not realizing that they have the power to change it through prayer. They see delays and assume it is fate. They experience failure and believe it is just life. But those who understand the reality of the spiritual realm know that nothing just happens. There is a battle over destinies, and those who rise at 3 a.m. are stepping into the fight. They are not waiting for circumstances to change. They are commanding change. They are not hoping for deliverance. They are enforcing it. They are not watching the enemy operate. They are driving him out. There are victories that will never be won until the battle is taken seriously. There are breakthroughs that will never come until the opposition is confronted. There are blessings that will never manifest until the hindrances are removed. The question is, will you rise in the hour of warfare? Will you take your authority? Will you break every chain that has held you back? The enemy is counting on your silence, on your passivity, on your But when you wake up at 3 a.m. and begin to pray, everything changes. The chains break, the barriers fall, the resistance is shattered. Heaven responds. Will you take your stand? There is a moment in prayer when the heavens open, when answers that have been delayed are suddenly released, and when the presence of God fills the atmosphere in an undeniable way. Many people pray but do not press in long enough to experience this supernatural shift. They give up too soon. walking away before the breakthrough happens. But those who understand the power of persistence know that the greatest encounters with God happen when prayer goes beyond routine and steps into deep communion. There's a dimension in the Spirit where God reveals secrets, where divine instructions are given, and where destinies are unlocked. Those who press into prayer at 3 a.m. are not just speaking words, they are ascending into a place where the supernatural becomes tangible. In the Bible, we are said that Jacob wrestled all night and refused to let go until he received his blessing. This is a picture of spiritual persistence, of not settling for a partial breakthrough, but pressing in until transformation takes place. There are many who pray for a moment and stop when they do not see results, but those who stay in the presence of God, who keep seeking, who refuse to be moved by delay, are the ones who experience divine encounters that shift their lives permanently. It is in these deep moments of prayer that destinies are rewritten, that past mistakes are overturned, and that the future is aligned with God's perfect plan. There are things that cannot be received in a distracted state. Some revelations, some answers, some supernatural experiences require complete focus, a heart that is fully engaged. Many pray while their minds wander, while their hearts are burdened with other concerns, and they wonder why they do not experience the presence of God. In the Bible, we are said that when Moses went up to the mountain, he was separated from everything and everyone. It was in that place of solitude, away from distractions, that he encountered God in a way that transformed him. When he came down, his face shone with the glory of God. This is what happens when prayer moves from duty to encounter. There is evidence, there is transformation, there is undeniable change. Those who press into prayer at 3 a.m. understand that this is not an ordinary moment. It is an hour when the veil between heaven and earth seems thinner, when divine visitations happen, when God speaks in ways that are undeniable. Many long to hear God's voice, but are not willing to wait in his presence. They ask for direction, but do not take the time to listen. They seek answers, but do not posture themselves to receive. In the Bible, we are said that Samuel heard the voice of God calling him, but he had to be still to listen, to respond. God is always speaking, but not everyone is positioned to hear. Those who set aside time in the early hours of the morning, who wait upon him, who tune their spirits to his voice, are the ones who receive divine secrets that others miss. There are moments in prayer when time seems to disappear, when the presence of God becomes so real that everything else fades away. It is in these moments that deep healing happens, that burdens are lifted, that clarity is given. There are wounds that no human words can heal, pain that no amount of counseling can fully remove. But one encounter with the presence of God can restore what was broken. In the Bible, we are said that Isaiah had a vision of God, and in that moment, everything about him changed. He saw himself clearly, he saw his purpose clearly, and he received a divine commission that shaped the rest of his life. There are some things about your destiny that will only be revealed in the secret place. There are some answers that will only come when you linger in prayer long enough to hear them. The early hours of the morning are a time when the distractions of the day have not yet begun, when the mind is still, when the noise of the world is silent. This is why those who seek God in these moments often experience a depth in prayer that is not easily found at other times. It is a time when visions are given, when prophetic insight is released, when direction for the future is made clear. Many struggle with uncertainty, with not knowing which path to take. But those who wake up in the early hours to pray receive clarity that others do not. In the Bible, we are said that Jesus often withdrew to pray in the early morning while it was still dark. If he, being the Son of God, needed these moments of separation to receive strength, wisdom, and clarity, how much more do we? There are levels of faith, of power, of revelation that are only accessed through deep prayer. Many desire the supernatural but are unwilling to pay the price of intimacy. They want God to move in their lives but do not invest time in seeking him. In the Bible, we are said that the disciples could not cast out a demon, and Jesus told them that this kind only comes out through prayer and fasting. This means that there are certain spiritual victories that cannot be won without going deeper, without pressing in, without sacrificing comfort to access power. Those who make 3M prayer a lifestyle are not ordinary people. They are those who experience supernatural encounters, who walk in divine authority, who receive insights and revelations that set them apart. They are the ones who operate in faith that is unshakable, who move in power that is undeniable, who carry a presence that is unmistakable. The question is, how deep are you willing to go? How much of God's presence do you truly desire? Will you be among those who experience divine encounters? Or will you settle for a surface-level relationship? Heaven is open, the invitation has been sent, but only those who press in will enter into the fullness of what has been prepared. There is a moment when the power of prayer does not just change situations, but transforms the person praying. Many approach prayer with the mindset of asking, seeking, and receiving, but true encounters in the presence of God do more than bring answers. They shift identities, change perspectives, and align lives with divine purpose. There are levels in the Spirit that cannot be accessed by casual prayers. And those who press in, who dedicate themselves to seeking God in the secret place, step into realms of power where they are no longer just people who pray, but people who carry the very presence of God. When Moses spent time in the presence of God, his face shone with glory. He did not just receive instructions, he carried evidence of his encounter. Those who spend time in deep prayer, especially in the early hours of the morning, begin to reflect the nature and authority of God in their daily lives. In the Bible, we are said that when Jesus prayed, even his appearance was transformed, and those with him saw the glory that had been concealed. This is what happens when prayer moves beyond routine and becomes an encounter. There is a transformation that happens not just in circumstances, but in the person praying. Fear is replaced with boldness. Weakness is exchanged for strength, and uncertainty is overtaken by divine clarity. Those who spend time in the presence of God do not just walk away with answers. They walk away changed. They carry a supernatural peace, an unshakable confidence, and a discernment that allows them to navigate life with wisdom and authority. Many people live beneath their potential, not because they lack talent or opportunities, but because they have not yet tapped into the fullness of their divine identity. There are gifts inside every believer that remain dormant until activated in prayer. There are callings that go undiscovered, assignments that go unfulfilled, and destinies that are never realized simply because people do not step into the secret place where God reveals his plans. In the Bible, we are said that Jeremiah was told that before he was formed in the womb, he was chosen, appointed, and set apart. This means that destiny is not something created by human effort, but something already written by God, waiting to be discovered. It is in deep moments of prayer, in times of seeking God, that people begin to understand who they truly are and what they are called to do. There is a confidence that comes when a person knows who they are in God. The enemy works through deception, making people believe they are weak, insignificant, or incapable. But those who have encountered God in prayer know the truth. They know they are more than conquerors, that they have authority over every work of darkness, that they are chosen for greatness. In the Bible, we are said that Gideon saw himself as the least, as insignificant. But when God encountered him, he was called a mighty warrior. His perception of himself changed, and that transformation happened before his circumstances shifted. Many are waiting for external change, but true change begins in the spirit. Those who rise in prayer at 3 a.m. step into a place where their spiritual identity is revealed, where their confidence is built, where they are empowered to walk in the fullness of what God has called them to be. There is a boldness that comes from knowing the power of God firsthand. Many operate in fear because they have not yet encountered the reality of God's presence in their own lives. They have heard testimonies, they have read about miracles, but they have not yet stepped into that realm themselves. In the Bible, we are said that Peter, after being filled with the Holy Spirit, spoke with such authority that thousands were drawn to salvation. This was the same man who had once been afraid, who had denied Jesus out of fear, but after encountering God's power, he became a different person. This is what happens in deep prayer. The timid become bold. The doubtful become unshakable. The ordinary become extraordinary. There are things that cannot be taught but must be caught in the Spirit. No amount of intellectual knowledge can replace the transformation that happens in the presence of God. Those who spend time in prayer begin to walk in a different dimension. They hear God's voice clearly. They operate in supernatural wisdom. They move with divine timing. The things that once confused them become clear. The battles that once seemed impossible become victories, and the obstacles that once hindered them are removed. In the Bible, we are said that Daniel was a man of prayer, and because of his consistency in seeking God, he carried an excellent spirit that set him apart. There was something different about him, something that made him stand out among his peers, and that difference was the presence of God upon his life. There are opportunities that only open for those who have been prepared in the secret place. Many are waiting for doors to open, for favor to manifest, but they have not yet stepped into the spiritual preparation required to handle the blessing. God does not release certain levels of promotion until a person is ready, and readiness is developed in the place of prayer. In the Bible, we are said that Jesus spent time in the wilderness fasting and praying before stepping into his public ministry. There was a preparation that had to take place before the miracles, before the teaching, before the impact. Many people desire the results but do not invest in the process. They want to walk in power but do not spend time in the presence of God. Those who understand this principle know that their greatest breakthroughs will not come from striving, but from surrendering in prayer. When a person commits to seeking God, to rising in the early hours, to pressing into his presence, everything about them changes. They become people who carry divine solutions, who operate with wisdom beyond their years, who walk with a confidence that is unshakable. They do not fear the future because they have already settled it in prayer. They do not struggle with identity because they have already received revelation from God. They do not live in confusion because they have already heard divine instruction. They walk in power and purpose and clarity. They become carriers of God's presence. And wherever they go, things shift. The atmosphere changes. The supernatural manifests. The world takes notice. Those who encounter God in the secret place never remain the same.